Welcome, everybody, to the Casual Planeswalker podcast. This is episode 1, and we're going to start off by giving you guys a little bit of an intro and talking about some current news in the Magic world. I figured it would be a good idea for everybody to know exactly who we've got here. So let's start with some introductions. Who'd like to go first? Nick?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Nick, the author of the Casual Planeswalker's Ultimate Guide to Deck Building. And that's pretty much my role, has been the creative and savvy mind behind the game. It's been kind of an obsession for me for several years, so it's finally a good opportunity for me to, use the knowledge that I've come up with to help others in this game.
And you recently became certified as a judge, right?
Not as a judge. I became a rules advisor, which is kind of like the step underneath, but still kind of difficult because you have to take a test where they pit you against many insanely odd situations that you might not know the answer to. But it gives you a better grasp on the rules to have done that.
Cool. And Josh, who do we have in your corner?
All right. Well, in my corner, we've got Josh. Yeah, I'm basically the kind of behind-the-scenes sort of business-minded catalyst, I guess you could say, behind the organization right now. I will be managing the blog, though, so anybody who decides to read that over the next few will be seeing anything that I deem to be newsworthy or interesting in the Magic community.
Nice. And at the mic right now, you have Brad. I will be the host for the future episodes of the podcast, as well as this one. And I've been into Magic for like 10 years now, but I've never really cared too much about anything but casual play, and I think most of us are about the same in this group, so we decided to share our vision with a lot of the other casual Magic players that I know are out there. So we created a company called the Casual Planeswalker, and we're at www.casualplaneswalker.com right now. We're going to get a blog set up. We've already got a really nice casual deck building guide that Nick said he wrote. And that's about it for the introductions. As far as this show's going, I already mentioned we're gonna talk about news, combos, tricks, tips, basically whatever we feel like talking about every week. So make sure to keep tuning in and download every episode enthusiastically. Alright, so I thought we'd kick things off by talking about a few concepts that have intrigued us in the new Magic world. So Josh, what have your thoughts been on some of the mechanics that have been introduced in World Wake?
Well, I was actually, this is coming from a pretty casual perspective. Like I said, I'm pretty lightweight on the Magic stuff, but one of the mechanics that I found really interesting was the idea of this multi-kicker coming in. I know it's not, completely life-changing as far as Magic's concerned, but I was kind of wanting to discuss it a little bit and see what you guys were thinking about how that sort of mechanic changes the gameplay, or if it even changes it at all, if anybody's really going to find it interesting.
Well, I think you, especially coming in, I think you kind of came back into Magic around Ravnica time, which is when Replicate was around.
Yeah,
so multi-kicker is a lot like that.
I remember seeing Replicate and thinking it was really cool, and then being kind of disappointed quickly.
I remember when you bought the blue and red Is It deck, and you thought,
oh yeah,
we're gonna just tear up.
And then got my torn up.
Yeah, Replicate was pretty crappy. But multi-kick seems way better, right?
There are specific cards, I think, that have some really effective multi-kicker, what's that one called? The
Comet Storm?
That one is very effective, I would say. The fact that you could pump a ton of mana into it and then wreck a lot of things is pretty powerful, especially damage to creatures, damage to players, kind of divide it up however you want.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about old combos, if you had that with Repercussion, it's a pretty powerful card. Repercussion, for those of you who don't know, is I believe, an enchantment that says, a red enchantment, whenever a creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to its controller. So if you were just to Comet Storm all of your opponent's creatures, it would be very painful.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you get rid of all the creatures and deal tons and tons of damage. But that's an ineffective way to do it, I think.
Well, it's kind of fun for casual play, I mean, I guess.
Right. I think actually if you want to go casual, going along the same vein, there's another new card I think that came out from World Wake called Chain Reaction, where each creature is dealt damage equal to the number of creatures in play, or something along those lines. So even those two, I mean, that's pretty twisted as well. So for those crafty red mages out there, I'd suggest kind of looking into that. Other than that, there's not a ton of multi-kicker that I would say are broken by any means, but they're definitely the fun ones. I think it's called the Wolfbriar Elemental. Is one that when it has multi-kicker of green. It's like 4 mana for a 4/4, 2 and 2 green for a 4/4 with a multi-kicker of 1 green. Each time you kick it, you put a 2/2 wolf into play. That seems pretty good if you're going to generate a lot of green mana via, I don't know, something like Gaia's Cradle, which is a rather expensive card, but if you have some, that could really make you a nice amount of wolf tokens. Or even if you were running it, kind of a one-of, or having a couple of them in an elf deck with Priest of Titania or some other elf that makes a ton of green mana, you could get a lot of wolf tokens out as well. So.
Yeah, well, another one that I thought was kind of interesting also was green, was that Gnarlid Pack. The 2/2 for 1 and a green.
Yeah.
For the multi-kicker, 1 and a green. Every time you play the kicker, you get the +1/+1.
Mm-hmm. It becomes a little mana inefficient at a certain point, but I think the fact that it's a grizzly bears that can get bigger is kind of cool, especially if you're drafting or something. It's
pretty decent. I mean, turn 2 it's a 2/2, turn 4 it's a 3/3. I mean, if you're drafting, especially
especially if you're drafting. If you're, that's what I think is great about the multi-kicker concept, is that there's a wide demographic of people that play draft and pretty much only draft, and in that case, those cards can be really powerful because you draw it. Let's say it's down to the last little bit, and you draw that card, like the Gnarlid Pack, and every other creature on the table has been, destroyed except for maybe your opponent has a 3/3, but you have like 10 mana available to you. You suddenly have a, what is that, 6/6 math person?
Something like
yeah,
that.
you have a 6/6, and you kind of have the edge over your opponent now because you have a creature that is, in a sense, modular. It's situational. You can make it bigger if you need it to be, and so that's the benefit of that late game, is you're just like, oh, pump all my mana into this thing, and now I'm better off than I was before.
Yeah. Well, I think that, considering the fact that these are really important, like, interesting cards for drafting is really, something that a lot of people care about. Because a lot of people who are playing, like we are, you run into, everyone's playing decks that are so honed in and ready to kill each other. You draft and really get some, changes the gameplay a little bit.
It does. It changes the way that you look at cards, too, because, I mean, there are cards that you open in a pack and you're like, why would anyone ever in their right mind play this card? And, well, that's because you're looking at it from a deck builder's perspective, and from any other perspective, like from a drafter's perspective, you're like, that is the most powerful card I could play in a draft. Because, I mean, it's even changed the way I look at creatures that have, no abilities, but are just huge, like a 6/3 or something, like, it's got a large power number on it. Well, that I would draft because I'm going to swing it at my opponent and they're going to either lose a creature or take 6 damage, so.
6/1 giant insect.
No, giant insects. They're spoiling myself.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I can imagine that would be kind of annoying to run into.
Yeah. I think the multi-kicker is definitely something that can be fun for new players. Especially, or even those players coming back from, Plane Chase. Or not Plane Chase, wow, what was that set called?
Planar Chaos?
Nope, before that.
Oh.
Plane Shift.
Plane Shift, that's right.
People coming back from Plane Shift kind of area, with the kicker and everything. And getting to see that come back, but with, the ability like, oh, I want to kick it more than once. And you get some extra abilities out of that. I like,
Nick,